Hello and welcome to exercise 2 of KJ's Crash Course. I am KJ and I just wanted to congratulate you on making it through lesson 1. I hope you learned a little bit about UI automation and how easy it is to actually do. Let's continue that by doing the same exercise again, but instead of using a hard-coded value, we are going to use what we call a variable. Right? If I read the official definition, variables are used to store multiple types of data. Another key aspect of the variables is that their value can change, so you can control how many times the body of a loop is executed. You can change, oh, I need to grab this value for this specific record and this value for this specific record. It's in the same spot on the screen, but I need a place to store it. You get the idea. Variables are super important, and while they are a coding principle, I don't think they're that difficult to understand. So I'm going to teach you how to create one and then use it in said automation. Okay, what we're going to do is we are going to create a variable in the same exercise that we built before, and I'm going to show you a little trick to kind of copy and paste a workflow while still keeping a separate project. I think it's super nice to have one package. So if you navigate to your documents, you navigate to UiPath, and wherever you're stored, I created a separate folder. Yours is probably going to say documents UiPath, and then you'll have it right there. Right? It's nice to have this project here, but if you want to create another one, you could always create another sequence inside of it, but I want to create a separate project and show you how to do it in more of like a hacky way. Okay? So what we're going to do before we edit the workflow is what we're going to do is we're going to copy this folder and we're going to paste it here. And you should get a login to, or whatever you called it, exercise 1 copy. And then what I want to do is just rename this to exercise 2, and then maybe just add variables to it so we know that this was the exercise that we used for variables. What's super cool, and what you may have noticed if you decided to explore, is there's a lot of folders in here. Chances are you're never going to look at them, right? But there is one that you're going to use that's called this project. And if you double click this, right, and it'll ask you like, do you want to open this up in Notepad? Go ahead and do it. Here's actually all of kind of the JSON behind it. And you'll notice that's the name we gave it when we created the automation. And then that was the description. So what's super cool is that we're actually going to edit this in that second folder and just rename it. Right, which is super cool because then it'll actually change when you open up the project. All right. So once again, what did we do? Well, we want to edit the same workflow. You can obviously go inside and do it, but I wanted to create it separate. So if you ever want to do it separate, just copy the folder, and then what you'll do is you'll step into here, and then you'll go to project, open it up, and then literally, welcome to coding. We're just going to edit the backend. So we'll call this exercise 2 variables, or whatever you decide to call it. Instead of first automation, let's say second automation, where we create a variable, right? And I'll delete the woot woot there, right? And just make sure you keep the quotation marks there. You don't want to run into any issues, but that's all we're going to do. You could have easily just left it the same. I just wanted to show you that. It's a little hacky. It is a little coding, but was it that difficult to understand? I don't think so. So a super cool way, we're actually going to use that when we create exercise 4 and 5 as well. So keep that in mind with what we do, because we're just going to go edit the workflows that we had before while keeping a separate project. Okay, so once you've gone ahead and done that, then what you can do to open up your Studio project is click Main right here, and this will open Studio for us, and it will automatically pull us into the previously created workflow for us to get started and create the variable. And you'll see right there, it's restoring all the dependencies, which is what we saw in that JSON. Once again, super technical. Chances are you probably won't ever do this. You'll just recreate a project every time. Not a big deal, but why recreate a project if you've already done all the work? That's exactly what we're looking at here, okay? This is the concept of modularization. There are more efficient ways to do this from a technical perspective, but I just wanted to show you the concept as we go through this, all right? So once this loads, we can see, oh, there's our main sequence again and what we built. Just to review, we told the application we want to interact with this web page. We want to type in our username, type in our password, and then click login. Okay. So now what we want to do is create a variable. Okay, and that variable is going to be of the string type. So there's a couple ways we can do it, so I'm just going to show you real quick how we can. Okay, so first thing you'll do is actually go ahead and delete out what we have type into here. Okay, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the shortcut way, and then I'm going to show you how to create it from the variables pane. All right, so if you want to do it the shortcut way, which I would recommend, usually you'll do this all the time, is it's Control K. And what you'll see is this set variable. And then best practice is to, when you're naming a variable, you might say username. I like to say str for string, right? Or dt for data table, or int for integer. We're just dealing with strings and data tables for our exercises. But you tell it what it is in the beginning, and then give it an underscore. And then I would put username or email, click enter. And what you'll notice is then that variable is now created down here. And just to give you a quick orientation, right? String username is the variable type string, and it did it automatically because type into needs to pass a string variable. And then it gives you a scope where it says do. And if we click on that, you see do or main sequence. You can leave it as do for this exercise. We are going to edit the variables pane later on in exercise 5, but just know that this variable would be available in the do block, because if we go outside of it, notice how the variable goes away. So scope is important to know where can I use this value throughout the whole automation. Now, if your whole automation is inside that do block, well, then you don't have to worry. But if not, just remember you can go here, change it to main sequence, and then there you go. Now we can use it throughout the whole automation. So just to show you a quick little check, you don't need to do this. Right there, message box, and then I can pull string username in. Okay, so just a quick example. Don't need to do the message box part unless you want to. Go for it, but you get the idea. Okay, so right there, we have now created a variable, right? Type into email that we're going to use there. Now, what we can do is let's create a variable, and then instead of having this hard-coded password, let's use the variable in that instead. So go to your variables pane, and then create variable, click it, and it'll give you a default of variable 1 or 2 or 7 or whatever you've created, and let's just call it string password. Okay, click enter or click outside of it, and then you'll see the variable type. You can leave it as do or main sequence. Then once you are done creating your variable, go to the password field and then start typing the name, and you'll see both of them that we created, username and password. Go ahead and double click that, click outside, and now instead of your automation using what we call hard-coded values, it is using a variable instead. To make sure that that is working, go ahead, make sure the application's open or not. Let's actually just close it and see what happens here. Right, we'll close that and then run your automation to make sure that it is running properly. And then right there, it'll pop open to that page if it wasn't already open. Ah, I caught myself in a mistake. We did not give it a value, which means it is not filled out. What did we do wrong? Well, let's find out here. We didn't add a value. Now, I actually didn't do this by design, but I am going to leave it in the video because I think it's a great learning moment. Just because we created the variable, we didn't give it a value, okay? And remember, right, variables are used to store multiple types of data, right? Multiple types of data. We didn't give it any data. So what we're going to do here is that instead of hard coding it, we're going to put the value here. So go ahead and put in quotation marks, right? Username there, and then password, put in your password there, right? And then once you have it as the default, that is the value. As we get deeper and more along into the exercises, you will see how we use an activity to store a value in there. Once again, just wanted to show you the concept of a variable. And clearly I messed up here and didn't do that in the beginning. When that happens, what do? Well, let's close that down again right here. And then let's rerun the exercise once we have given it the value. And once it compiles, run it, opens it up. Click login, and it closed down. way you can do that, we can edit a parameter, but we're going to edit. Actually, let's go through it now. We're already here. It closed down. You don't know if it's there. If we look at the properties pane here, okay, we notice there are options where it says open and close. To make sure that we get there, you don't need to edit the open, but it is closing by default. So close, if we change that to never, that allows us to test it one more time. Okay, so a little finicky. It passed everything. I'm sure it logged in, but just another thing you can do here. Okay, so then go through, run it one more time, or if you've already done it and you've gotten it to work, great, fantastic. If you had it open, it won't close because it was already opened, but you get the idea. If we do open it, yep, pass the variable there, click login, and then just to make sure we're there, we are logged in. So that is the concept of creating variables. I know I gave you a little bit there, but variables are going to be super, super important as you build automations. If you're building in Studio X, it is the save for later principle. Otherwise, that's really it. Feel free to review the supplemental content afterwards and move on to exercise 3, where what we do is that instead of putting in hard-coded values, we are going to read data from an Excel and complete what we call the RPA challenge, the most quintessential old-school activity there is out there for RPA technology. This is KJ signing off, and I hope to see you with exercise 3. Cheers, y'all.